distinguished President of the Court, distinguished Prosecutor, distinguished Registrar, Your Excellencies, I call to order the 9th plenary meeting of the 21st session of the Assembly. This afternoon, we will first consider the draft resolutions before the Assembly. We will then hear the report of the Credentials Committee. Finally, we will adopt the report of the 21st session of the Assembly. Some draft texts have only been made available on the course of this morning, and in the case of the budget, only a few minutes ago. In the interest of concluding our work today, and as has been done in the past, I would ask for your cooperation and propose, as envisaged in Rule 56 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly, that we take action on the draft resolution this afternoon. We will first resume our consideration of Agenda Item 11, consideration and adoption of the budget for the 21st financial year. Here we take up the report of the Working Group on the Program Budget, the draft resolution on the Program Budget for 2023, and the proposed Program Budget for 2023. First, we will turn to the report of the Working Group on the Program Budget. You have before you the report of the Working Group contained in document ICC ASP/21/Working Group Program Budget/CRP1, which has been submitted by the Chair of the Working Group on the Program Budget, Ambassador Francis Galatia Lanitu Williams from Cyprus, after the Working Group's meeting held earlier this afternoon. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt the report of the Working Group on the Program Budget contained in document ICC ASP/21 WGPV CRP1?
Well done.
I see no objection. The report of the Working Group is adopted. The Assembly shall now take action on the draft resolution on the Program Budget for 2023 contained in document ICC ASP/21/L.4 Revision 1. I now give the floor to the coordinator on the budget, Ambassador Francis Galatia Lanitu Williams from Cyprus, to introduce the draft resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, distinguished delegates. Thank you for giving me the floor. The 2023 proposed program budget was submitted to the 21st session of the Assembly by the Registrar of the Court. The Assembly has been provided with statements by the Registrar, as well as statements from the Chair of the Committee on Budget and Finance and the External Auditor and the Vice Chair of the Audit Committee. The relevant documentation will be contained in Volume 2 of the official records of the 21st session. The draft resolution on the Programme Budget for 2023, document ICC ASP/21/L4/Rev1, dated 9 December 2022, has been distributed by email. The draft resolution contains 18 sections from A to R, addressing various aspects of the budget. The resolution was discussed during the informal consultations in the Hague Working Group this year and in the Assembly's Working Group on Programme Budget. It is my conclusion as the coordinator that there is consensus, and I therefore would like to submit the budget resolution for the consideration of the Assembly. I would like to thank the Committee on Budget and Finance, the External Auditor, the Audit Committee and the Court for their contributions. I also wish to thank the focal points for the budget subtopics of Budget Management, Oversight and Premises, Ambassador William Rollins de Stappers of Belgium and Mrs. Maria Stajc Radivojsa of Serbia, respectively. Finally, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to all delegations. Your professionalism and outstanding dedication to our court has helped us reach agreement. I acknowledge the extra effort that you all had to make to get us here, and I'm deeply grateful, both personally and in my capacity as budget facilitator, for your support and for your friendship. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the coordinator for her introduction. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before taking action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt the draft resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21/L4 revision 1 without a vote? I see no objection. The draft resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21L4 is adopted. Is there any delegation wishing to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution? I give the floor to the delegation of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam President. It is my honor to deliver this statement on behalf of Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Ireland, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, New Zealand, Norway, Slovakia, Slovenia, South Africa, the State of Palestine, and Switzerland, and my own country, the Netherlands. Today, on the last day of the 21st session of the Assembly of State Parties, we have adopted the budget of the International Criminal Court for 2023. While deliberations on the budget have been long, the active engagement of many state parties spoke to the importance that we all attach to this process. We express our sincere gratitude to the budget facilitator, Ambassador Lani-Tu Williams, for her excellent leadership and guidance during the negotiations. We also highly appreciate the court's work and its engagement in the whole process. Madam President, the budget negotiations were marked by two coinciding factors. On one hand, the workload of the ICC has reached a record high with several simultaneous judicial proceedings and new investigations. On the other hand, we cannot ignore the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic difficulties faced by many in this room. Soaring inflation is concerning for the court and for state parties alike. Against this backdrop, we must congratulate ourselves for adopting the budget by consensus today. And we thank all delegations for the flexibility they showed during the negotiations. Throughout the budget discussions, our guiding principle was to guarantee that the court has adequate resources to deliver justice. This year, it mainly translated into the need to enable the conduct of 3 parallel trials, as well as to accommodate the Office of the Prosecutor's increased workload. We have together established the Committee on Budget and Finance as the technical body responsible for assessing the court's budget proposals. We have full trust in their work and take the CBF recommendations as our well-justified guidance. Our countries regret that the approved budget does not entirely meet the needs of the court. we remain concerned about the likely impact of this in future years. In particular, the budget allocated for the Office of the Prosecutor does not address the increased workload, nor the expectations placed on the office today. While many of our countries have provided the ICC with voluntary financial support or gratis personnel, we are concerned that the budget adopted today will lead to further calls for voluntary support to perform its statutory functions. This exceptional support was always intended to complement the regular budget, but not to replace or to substitute it. Madam President, the ICC has been struggling with severe liquidity issues over the past years. Our countries are concerned that the budget adopted today and our failure to agree on the replenishment of the contingency fund will limit the court's flexibility to respond to new and unexpected demands. Nevertheless, we welcome the consensus achieved and look forward to continue working together in support of the Court's important mandate. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank you, Ambassador, for your statement, and now I give the floor to the Kenya.
Madam President, dear delegates, good afternoon. I read this statement on behalf of the African states to the International Criminal Court, and just for luck, so that we do not miss anything, that is Benin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Djibouti, Gabon, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, my country Kenya, Lesotho, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Mauritius, Namibia, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Tunisia, Uganda, and the United Republic of Tanzania, and last but not least, Zambia. Madam President, the African Group wishes to sincerely thank the facilitator for the budget negotiations, Ambassador Williams from Cyprus, for her excellent work guiding state parties towards an agreement on the budget. The budget negotiation is a difficult process in any year, and this year, being an exceptional year, the process was particularly difficult. We are very grateful for Ambassador Williams' skill, courage, in facilitating the discussions. The figure of 12.2% proposed as a compromise solution represents a very high increase from the current budget. Not only is it almost 3 times the increase we agreed 1 year ago, but it is much higher than the increases that are possible on a domestic level in budgets for public institutions in any of our respective countries, in which, in the recent years, typically have had a 0 nominal increase or at most only pays for the rate of inflation. However, the Africa Group joined consensus around this figure given the increased workload of the court that results from the mandate that we as state parties have given it, and in order to ensure that the capacity of the court is safeguarded. Madam President, we join the consensus on the understanding, which consensus needs to be very clear, that this year and this budget are exceptional. The African Group, as well as many other state parties in the room, are taking a significant stride in agreeing to this budget increase. The court and its partners should keep in mind that the additional financial resources that we are committing to the ICC are resources that will not be available to apply to any other urgent priorities in our countries. Let it not be lost in anyone that we will not be likely to be able to make the same commitment in our next budget discussions 2023 should the situation remain as is current. Madam President, you'll allow me, now that we have the floor, to make a few remarks in my national capacity. Kenya, as I said, is that this year the budget negotiations have been exceptional. We have agreed to any changes just to show our commitment to this court and to the work that it does. We hope that in the next year's budget negotiations, there will be real, open, pragmatic, practical, and judicious decision-making to ensure that it is the activities of the court, the main activities of the court, that are funded over and above any other auxiliary activities. With that, Madam President, I do thank you and wish everyone a very successful end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. And I now give the floor to Mexico.
Muchísimas.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I would also like to congratulate the facilitator. I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the GRULAC group concerning the adoption of the budget by the ICC for 2023. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, Madam Ambassador, for the excellent work that you've carried out to facilitate the adoption of this budget. From the draft resolution, we thought that the difficult situations that our countries were facing would make this negotiation more complex. Given all these reasons, we hope as GRULAC to contribute to a balanced approach, a balance between the needs of the court and the state's real capacities. And everyone has made great efforts. It's important for the countries that are members to the Rome Statute take into account the different realities in the states. We firmly reject any idea that political support to the court is directly linked to the financial capacities to contribute to its work. We agree that maintaining operations of the court is essential when discussing the budget. However, we must give great importance to the capacities of the states to meet their financial obligations. GRULAC has decided to keep a flexible position throughout the negotiations so that we can reach a consensus about the figures that takes into account the needs of the court and the capacities of the states. Most countries in our region have advocated for zero nominal increase in the budget, and we consider that this is exceptional to increase the budget by 12.2%. This puts great pressure on our public finances, and we will have to make great efforts. Our delegations have accepted to make these efforts in our support of the ICC. We believe that this will help to maintain the operations of the court, and we will be able punctually to meet these obligations. However, the impact of such a high budget may affect the current crisis of liquidity, and that's why we have to make sure that this is an extraordinary measure and does not create a precedent and cannot open the way for future increases of this magnitude. We hope that this will continue to optimize the mechanisms for the productivity of the court and contain costs so that we're not faced with a similar situation in the future. We may be in a situation where certain countries may not be able to meet their financial obligations in 2023, which may lead to further cash flow problems within the court. we have made an extra effort to support the court, and we hope that the court will take this into account to make sure that there is an equal geographic representation of GRULAC in its organs. So thank you very much.
Floor to Bangladesh.
Madam President, for any process, any organization, budgetary and administrative matters, as much as it's key, but it's not easy to arrive at consensus or the end. And we have, this whole week we have seen that this court being no exception. So I would say that this is truly a moment of collective celebration for all of us. My delegation would therefore applaud first Ambassador Francis for her exceptional leadership and perseverance, if I may say, in steering us to the goalpost. And thank you, I think, we can really applaud each of us that we certainly can go and enjoy the games which are now coming up. It surely wasn't easy. Delegations coming from diverse realities had to confront dilemmas or trade-offs, difficult choices, and I really heard with attention both from Kenya and Mexico, especially from the developing world. While Bangladesh delegation had been flexible, as we said on Wednesday, we do value and respect everyone's position. I must underscore that while we do agree, we have to, because of the prevailing ground situation, particularly concerning the Rohingya situation in Bangladesh, Bangladesh is already committing a large sum, substantial sum to support them, which is definitely not a concern of the budget. Which, yes, we heard some delegations as also the OTP a little while before that we could not meet or satisfy the expectations. But we remained united in diversity. That's what I would put in the fact that at the end, we concur in our common purpose of reaffirming the importance of ICC in global justice and accountability system, centrality of Committee on Budget and Finance in its objective works, and that the court has to be provided with predictable resources as a matter of principle. That's why Bangladesh recognized the value of some of the elements that I heard from my dear friend Ambassador Henk from Netherlands when he read out a collective statement. These led Bangladesh delegation receptive to various proposals not driven by any dollar figure. And my delegation shares similar sentiment also from several delegations coming from Asia on an objective score. We would sincerely hope that with all agreed and settled now unanimously, we, the state parties, will meet with our collective commitment in time, and next year, the court doesn't have to struggle over liquidity crisis as it does currently. Finally, our warm felicitations again to everyone involved in this tedious process, delegations, as also OTP, for the understanding and flexibility demonstrated. I thank you.
I thank you, and now I give the floor to Sweden.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wish to clarify that Sweden also joins the statement delivered by the Netherlands. Thank you very much.
I thank you. And now I give the floor to France.
Je vous remercie, Madame.
Thank you, Madam President, for giving me the floor. And I will be speaking on behalf of my country. I would like to thank all of the delegations for your spirit of compromise. You have made great efforts despite the constraints that many of you are facing. Thank you, each and every one of you, for your commitment, which was decisive, and we're convinced of that. France is extremely grateful to Ambassador Williams for her efforts towards the negotiations. I would just like to share some brief considerations with you. The current issues and challenges that we are facing require that we as states parties increase our mobilization. I would even go as far as to say that we need to listen to each other much more than we have been doing. This week, once again, we have shown that we are collectively and resolutely supporting the International Criminal Court and what it represents, a universal need for justice for victims. I will be paraphrasing my minister who said this during the general debate. At the age of 20, this court is still a young institution and requires all of our support as the only international criminal jurisdiction with a universal vocation. A universal vocation, that is the shared vision that we have. That is the spirit in which we find the strength that gives the court its legitimacy. We must protect this spirit and translate it into everything we do with all the respect that it deserves. I would like to conclude by thanking Charlotte and the delegation whose work was greatly appreciated during this negotiation, and alongside Ambassador Lanitu Williams, we were able to reach this final decision, which is beneficial to everyone. We fully support the proposal that was put to all of us, and once again, I would like to thank all the delegations for this compromise, and I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.
Merci. And now I give the floor to Poland.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me start by thanking our fearless budget facilitator, Ambassador Frances Galatia Lanitu Williams, for her tremendous work, relentless efforts, and incredible patience in the budget negotiations this year. We all know, Madam President, that a compromise is an agreement that involves mutual concessions. But a good compromise is the fairest solution which can be reached under the existing circumstances. And I think that we reached a fair but difficult compromise, a compromise that for the court means that it will be able to maintain its pace of work and hopefully, probably with great effort, especially on the OTP's end, increase it. But at the same time, this compromise takes into account the capacity of states to fulfill their responsibilities towards the court. A good compromise also means that all parties, all stakeholders involved are actually equally unhappy with the result. And we all know that the budget we just adopted is not the ideal one, especially not the ideal one for the court. But at least I hope that we can be happy because we reached this consensus despite our differences, united for a common goal, which is to support the ICC so that it can fulfill its mission. Thank you so much, Madam President.
I thank you, and now give the floor to the State of Palestine.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. We welcome the adoption of the resolution and we thank the facilitator for her leadership as well as the committee for its central work to the court. We also commend the state parties for acting responsibly and for joining consensus resolution. We regret that the approved budget does not meet the needs of the court, and we remain concerned that the limited budget limits victims' access to justice. We reiterate the importance of increasing the regular budget of the court and the equitable allocation of resources. We are concerned about the lack of equitable allocation of resources across all situations, which is necessary to ensure that investigations are expedient and effective. This is especially true where crimes are ongoing and impunity is protracted. We are also worried about the reliance on voluntary contributions and warn that the budget and its equitable allocation or lack thereof could either reinforce selectivity or advance universality of the Rome Statute. Thank you.
I thank you, and now give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. United Kingdom, like Sweden, would just like to align with the statement by the Ambassador of the Netherlands. Thank you very much.
I thank you. And if there are no other requests from the floor, we shall now proceed to take action on the proposed program budget. I am sorry, Denmark.
Thank you, Madam President, and I apologize for not being clear enough. I am reading this short statement in our national capacity. First and foremost, let me express our deepest appreciation to the Madam Facilitator for her ability to lead us through these negotiations. It has been challenging at times, but your steady hand on the tiller has been instrumental in reaching a consensus. So thank you very much for that. I also want to express our support for the consensus achieved, while acknowledging that although the figure might not have been the ideal figure for any of the state parties present here in the room, albeit for different reasons, I do want to commend the colleagues here in the room for their effort in finding a compromise figure that, on the one hand, takes into account the needs of the court, and on the other hand, reflects the macroeconomic challenges that we are all facing in these difficult times. Thank you again, Madam Chair, for giving me the word.
I thank you. Are there any further requests for the floor? We wait a bit longer now. I see none. So we shall now proceed to take action on the proposed program budget for 2023 contained in document ICC ASP/21/10 Corrigendum 1 and Addendum 1 as read in conjunction with the recommendation of the working group contained in its report. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before taking action on the proposed program budget? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the proposed program budget for 2023 contained in document ICC ASP21/10 Corrigendum 1 and Addendum 1 as read in conjunction with the recommendation of the working group on the budget contained in its report ICC ASP21 WGPB/CRP1. I see no objection. It is so decided. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the program budget? I see none. I wish at this stage to express appreciation on behalf of the Assembly for the assistance with the Chair of the Committee on Budget and Finance, Mr. Werner Brubel, has provided at this session. We thank you very much. Now, this Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 11. But before we move on to the next agenda item, I would like, on behalf of the Assembly, to express our deep appreciation to Ambassador Francis Galatialanitou Williams from Cyprus for her tireless efforts over the past 2 years in reaching an agreement on the crucial and complex issue of the budget. This year, the process has been particularly long and complex. We are all truly indebted to her. Delegations have expressed their recognition, and they have also requested me to present her on their behalf with a bouquet as a token of their deep appreciation. And now we shall take action on the draft resolution entitled Strengthening the International Criminal Court and the Assembly of State Parties, the Omnibus Resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21/L3. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the omnibus resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21/L3? I see no objection. The draft resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21/L3 is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution? I give the floor to the delegation of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam President, for giving me the floor. I would also first start by thanking the facilitator of the omnibus resolution, Ms. Virpi Laukanen, for her excellent facilitation of this resolution. The Netherlands welcomes the adoption of the omnibus resolution. In the spirit of compromise and consensus, we have shown flexibility throughout the process of negotiations, and in line with this flexibility, we support the text in front of us today. The Netherlands would like to make 2 comments with regard to paragraphs in the omnibus resolution. With these comments, we intend to clarify our understanding of 2 paragraphs. On paragraph 89, although we support the language that requests the court to consider interim measures within existing resources in the legal aid budgets to the benefit of members of defense and victims teams, it is important to clarify that this will not affect the legal framework relating to privileges and immunities. We note that if the state's parties wish to make changes to the privileges and immunities applicable to external counsel and persons assisting defense counsel, this will require a change to the relevant provisions of the multilateral and bilateral legal framework. Secondly, regarding paragraph 153, we would like to emphasize the important and invaluable role the CBF, with its independent members, has in budgetary procedures of the court. Although the CBF is indeed institutionally a subsidiary organ of the ASP, this in no way diminishes the independence of its members or the importance of its work. And since this is likely the last time our delegation will be taking the floor, I would like to say a few words to thank you, Madam President, the Vice Presidents, the Secretariat, everyone involved on stage and backstage, the court, states, international organizations, NGOs, and of course, most importantly, the interpreters for all your efforts this week. Thank you very much.
I thank you for your statement and your kind words. Is there any other delegation wishing to take the floor? State of Palestine.
Thank you, Madam President. We welcome the adoption of the resolution and thank the facilitator for her leadership. The State of Palestine is clear in its firm position on the importance of protecting the court, its personnel, and those cooperating with it. We have been working closely with all states parties to ensure that there is an adequate language in the omnibus resolution to describe the gravity and urgency of the ongoing attacks and threats against the court and those cooperating with it, including civil society and human rights defenders. This year, the State of Palestine also worked with states parties in the inclusion of PP1 bis on affirming that the crime of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression must not go unpunished. We reiterate that the jurisdictional regime for the crime of aggression should be aligned with all 3 other crimes. Stemming from our concerns and that of the states parties, the State of Palestine joined other states in forming and formulating 1 bis in the omnibus resolution on the consistent implementation of the court's mandate across all situations and cases under its jurisdiction. The State of Palestine remains committed to the court, its personnel, and those cooperating with it, and remains committed to a budget that ensures all victims have access to justice. Thank you.
I thank you. Is there any other delegation wishing to take the floor? I see none. So the Assembly will now take action on the draft resolution on cooperation contained in document ICC ASP/21/L5 revision 1. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution on cooperation contained in document ICC ASP21 L5 revision 1? I see no objection. The draft resolution on cooperation is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution on cooperation? I see none. So the Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 16. The Assembly will now take action on the draft resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21/L6 entitled Review of the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute System. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution on the review of the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute System contained in document ICC ASP/21/L6? I see no objection. The draft resolution is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution? I see none. The Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 15. The Assembly will now take action on the draft resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21L7 and entitled Amendment to the Rules of Procedure and Evidence of the International Criminal Court. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution entitled Amendment to the Rules of Procedure and Evidence of the International Criminal Court? I see no objection. The draft resolution contained in document ICC ASP/21/L7 is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution? I see none. The Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 18. The Assembly will now take action on the draft recommendation concerning the election of the Registrar of the International Criminal Court contained in document ICC ASP/21/L9. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft recommendation? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft recommendation concerning the election of the Registrar of the International Criminal Court contained in document ICC ASP/21/L9? I see no objection. It is so decided. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the recommendation? I see none. The Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 14. Distinguished colleagues, let us proceed now to Agenda Item 5B, Report of the Credentials Committee. I give the floor to the Chair of the Credentials Committee, Mr. Oscar Felipe Izquierdo from Ecuador, to present the report of the Credentials Committee contained in document ICC ASP/21/L2.
Madam President, distinguished delegates, I'm delighted to present the report of the Credentials Committee, which has been distributed and which can be found in document ICC ASP21/L2. The Credentials Committee, which I'm honoured to preside over, submits the draft resolution contained in paragraph 7 of the resolution and accepts the credentials of the countries mentioned in paragraphs 4 and 5. Therefore, the committee recommends to the Assembly of States Parties to adopt the draft resolution contained in paragraph 10, and then this will also lead to the adoption of the report of the Credentials Committee. I would just like to make one clarification before we conclude. Given that the registry mentioned that Italy wanted to add its name to the list. With that, I would like to thank my colleagues from Germany, Bangladesh, Japan, Kenya, Bulgaria and South Africa, which have been involved in the Credentials Committee. I thank them for their valuable support. I would also like to sincerely thank the registry for all of their support. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. I thank the chair of the Credentials Committee for introducing the report. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to approve the report of the Credentials Committee as contained in document ICC ASP/21/L2 as orally amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. Now, the Assembly will consider the draft report of the 21st session. Before proceeding to adopt the report, I invite Mr. Bisa Nene, Côte d'Ivoire, the rapporteur, to introduce the draft report contained in document ICC ASP21L1.
Merci, Madame la.
Thank you very much, Madam President. First of all, I would just request it to be noted that the numbers of the resolutions will be added later by the Secretariat. It's also important to note that there are differences on the numbering of certain paragraphs, and the numbers of the dates of future meetings will be added later by the Secretariat. That said, it's my honour to present the draft report of the Assembly of States Parties to the International Criminal Court, which held its 21st session in The Hague from the 5th to 10th of December 2022. This report is contained in document ICC ASP21L1. All of the content will be reflected in this document. The official documents of the 21st session will be published in 2 different volumes. Volume 1 will contain the report of the Assembly made up of 3 different sections. The first section includes the debates of the session, and this is divided into 2 chapters. Chapter A is called Introduction, and this includes paragraphs 1 to 14. This provides factual information on the holding of this 21st session and those involved in it. The opening of the session, the composition of the Credentials Committee, adoption of the agenda, and the organization of work. Chapter B, review of items included on the agenda of the 21st session. This covers the work of the 21st session. It also provides factual information on the activities of the Assembly with regard to every different agenda item at this session. It also refers to the various different outcomes of the activities undertaken, including resolutions and decisions that are adopted, and the recommendations that have been made, as well as the agreements made by the Assembly. Chapter B is divided into 18 sections. Paragraphs 15 to 17 of Section 1 concerns states in arrears. Section 2, paragraph 18 to 19 of the draft report concerns the credentials of representatives of states at the 21st session. Paragraphs 20 to 21 of Section 3 refer to the general debate which was held during the 21st session. Section 4 paragraphs 22 to 23, refer to the report on the activities of the Bureau, which the Assembly took note of. Paragraph 24 of Section 5 regards the report on the activities of the Court, of which the Assembly took note. Paragraph 25 of Section 6 refers to the report of the Board of Directors of the Trust Fund for Victims and the statement of the chair of this board, of which the Assembly took note. Section 7, paragraph 26 to 30. This concerns the review and the adoption of the budget of the 21st session, or rather the 21st financial year. The document ICC 21 WPGB CRP .1 was adopted, and also the program budget was also adopted. In addition, the Assembly adopted the resolution on the program budget, which covers the following areas. A, program budget for 2023, including loans of 173 million for major programs, and this covers the relevant tables for all different programs. B, working capital fund for 2023. C, arrears for contingency fund, and then also the F, financing of expenditure authorizations for 2023. G, premises of the court. H, credits for major programs under the approved program budget for 2022. I, audit. J, budgetary oversight. K, elaboration of budgetary proposals. L, strategic oversight of the budgeting process. M, human resources. N, referrals by the Security Council. O, 5-year strategy on technology and information technology management. P, remuneration of judges. Q, amendments to the financial rules and regulations. And then R, family visits for indigent detainees. The following points will also be reflected in the final report. Paragraph 31 of Section 8 is on the examination of the audit report. This is covered in the report of the working groups on the program budget. The report of the external auditor and the proposed program budget for 2023 and the report of the CBF will be included in Volume 2 of the official documents. Paragraphs 32 to 35 of Section 9 regard the election of members of the Committee on Budget and Finance. Paragraphs 36 to 37 of Section 10 regard the election of the Registrar. Paragraphs 38 to 40 of Section 11 concern the review of the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute system adopted by the resolution, of which the number we've mentioned later on. Paragraph 41 and paragraph 42 of Section 12 show that the Assembly adopted the resolution on cooperation. Paragraph 43 of Section 13 refers to the review of the work and the operational mandate of the independent oversight mechanism, and will note that the Assembly adopted by consensus the resolution, and also requests the Bureau to continue analysing these matters to also incorporate the recommendations by the the expert committee and to make recommendations at the 22nd session. Paragraphs 44 to 45 of Section 14 concern the amendments to the Rome Statute and the rules of procedure and evidence. The Assembly has taken note of the working group on amendments. Section 15, paragraph 46. The Assembly took note of the activities undertaken in 2022 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute. Paragraph 47 of Section 16 refers to the decision regarding the dates and venue of the next sessions of the committee of the Assembly of States Parties. Paragraph 48 of Section 17 reports on the decisions concerning the dates and venue of the 38th session of the Committee on Budget and Finance. As in the past, the report on the resolution will not have different paragraphs because there's decisions that are already taken in are already reflected in the various different parts of the report. Section 18 deals with other matters. Paragraphs 49 to 51 concern the trust fund for financing participation of the least developed countries and other developing countries in the work of the Assembly. Paragraphs 52 to 53 concern the elections to fill a vacant post on the Committee on Budget and Finance. The second part of the report will contain the observations and recommendations of the Assembly with regard to the report of the auditors, the recommendations of the Assembly on the draft programme budget for 2023, and the observations and recommendations of the Assembly with regard to matters having a financial and budgetary impact. With regard to Section 3, the Secretariat is invited, as in the past, to include in the final report the resolutions adopted by the Assembly at its 21st session. The annexes to the report of the 21st session will include the report of the Credentials Committee, the report of the Working Group on Programme Budget, the statement made by the Chair of the Committee on Budget and Finance, statements made by Member States in explanation of vote, and a list of documents. I would like to request delegations that have any editorial or typographical corrections to make to the document in any language to please send them to the Secretariat. And these will be included in the official final document. Madam President, I will now conclude my presentation on the draft report by recommending its adoption by the Assembly. Thank you very much.
The rapporteur for introducing the report of the 21st session of the Assembly. We shall now begin the adoption of our report. I propose that we proceed section by section. I request delegations wishing to propose editorial or technical corrections to please contact the Secretariat directly. Section A, Introduction. Does the Assembly agree to adopt paragraphs 1 to 14? Section A is adopted. Section B, Part 1, States in arrears. Does the Assembly agree to adopt these parts? Adopted. Does the Assembly agree Part 2? Does the Assembly agree to adopt this part on credentials? Adopted. Paragraph 3, General Debate. Part 3, General Debate. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this part? Part 4, Report on the activities of the Bureau. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this Part 4? Adopted. Part 5, Report on the activities of the Court. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this part? Adopted. Part 6, report of the Board of Directors of the Trust Fund for Victims. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this part? Adopted. Part 7, consideration and adoption of the budget for the 21st financial year. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this part? Adopted. Part 8, consideration of the audit reports. Does the Assembly agree to adopt it? Adopted. Election of 6 members of the Committee on Budget of Finance, Part 9. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this Part 9? Adopted. Part 10, recommendations concerning the election of the Registrar. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this Part 10? Adopted. Part 11, review of the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute system. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this Part 11? Adopted. Part 12, cooperation. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this part on cooperation? Adopted. Part 13, on review of the work and operational mandate of the IOM. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this Part 13? Adopted. Part 14, on amendments of the Rome Statute and the Rules of Procedure and Evidence. Does the Assembly agree to adopt it? Adopted. Part 15, 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute. Does the Assembly agree to adopt it? Adopted. Part 16, decision concerning the dates and venues of the next session of the Assembly of State Parties. Does the Assembly agree to adopt it? Adopted. Paragraph 17, decisions concerning the dates and venues of the next session of the Committee on Budget of Finance. Does the Assembly agree to adopt it? Adopted. Paragraph 18, other matters. Does the Assembly agree to adopt this paragraph, this part on other matters? Adopted. So we have thus completed the adoption of our report. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt the report of the 21st session of the Assembly of State Parties as a whole? I see no objections. The report of the 21st session of the Assembly contained in document ICC ASP21/L1 is adopted. The Secretariat will compile the report and the relevant annexes as soon as possible. The final version will be posted on the official website of the Court. May I take it that this is the wish of the Assembly to proceed on this basis? I see no objection. It is so decided. Distinguished delegates, we have thus concluded our consideration of the items on our agenda for the 21st session. I thank you all for your cooperation. At this point, I would like to indicate that during this session, some of you have expressed concerns about security risks for human rights defenders by virtue of their work in support of the Court or accountability in general. This was expressed by several state parties and civil society organizations during the general debate, as well as on a side event specifically dedicated to this important matter. Some of you have also raised your concerns directly with me and the Secretariat, both in writing and during informal exchanges. The Assembly and the Court have a shared responsibility to promote and protect the goals and work of the Court, including from any threat or attack against the Court itself, its officials, or those cooperating with it. As President of the Assembly, I intend to engage in consultations with the Court, the Bureau, and other stakeholders on this important matter to identify appropriate measures to address these concerns. More specifically, and without prejudice to other issues, I intend to look into ways to enhance the security of all those that come to participate in our assembly sessions. Indeed, I am very pleased that this session has offered a vibrant and interesting space that has allowed for fruitful discussions on multiple issues. We also need to ensure that the Assembly also offers a secure space where risks of reprisals or other measures against participants are minimized to the fullest extent possible. In this regard, and as part of these consultations, I intend to reach out inter alia to the United Nations and other international organizations to take stock of their own experience in this regard. You can all rest assured that the concerns that have been expressed are taken very seriously. Before closing, I wish to indicate that the Coalition for the International Criminal Court has requested the opportunity to make a brief statement. Does the Assembly agree to invite the Coalition for the International Criminal Court to make a brief statement? I see no objection. I give the floor to the Coalition.
On behalf of the Coalition for the ICC, it's a great honor to offer the following observations as the Assembly draws to a close. Civil society has participated actively in this session despite several challenges. Numerous human rights defenders traveled on long and dangerous journeys to The Hague in order to have their voices heard, and will travel back home on the same road to continue their work. We welcome expressions of support as the one you just gave and the one from many states parties regarding the critical role of civil society and human rights defenders in the Rome Statute system. We urge the Assembly to ensure that civil society participation in the work of the ASP is safeguarded and guaranteed, and call on state parties to remain vigilant and continue to defend and protect human rights defenders who are targeted because of their work to advance justice. We also reiterate our call to states parties to ensure the court has the resources necessary to execute its global mandate for justice. In spite of limited increases, the adoption of a budget so clearly inconsistent with the court's workload may lead to harm to victims' access to justice and challenges to the court delivery of fair and accessible justice across the situations before it. The Coalition joins state parties that have called for sustainable resources in the regular budget of the court and urges the Assembly to make a connection between the budget and the discourse of a victim-centered court. Looking ahead, states parties should begin discussions immediately on the real investment needed at the court and support the court in developing a long-term strategic vision as a basis for closing the gap between the work the court must do and the resources it has available. We strongly reiterate that victims and affected communities should be at the center of the court's work. There cannot be meaningful justice nor protection for victims' rights without participation from those most affected by its work and decisions, and without the effective representations of victims during proceedings before this court. Finally, we welcome state parties' commitment to improving ICC election processes, including through the establishment of an ad hoc vetting process early next year for the 2023 judicial elections. We also look forward to engaging with you in the development of this process, as well as a permanent vetting process to be adopted by the next Assembly session. Both processes should be safe, transparent, and comprehensive. As the Assembly will elect 6 new ICC judges next year, we also urge state parties to adopt and implement fair, transparent, and merit-based national nomination processes in accordance with international standards and commit to nominate and elect the most qualified candidates. The Coalition continues to strongly oppose reciprocal political agreements or vote trading in the ICC and ASP elections. The coalition reiterates its appreciation for the unique consultative status we have with the Court and the Assembly of State Parties, which builds on the earlier recognition of civil society in the final act of the Rome Conference of 1998. Looking ahead, the next year's 25th anniversary of the Rome Statute, which we will commemorate not only regarding the adoption of the statute itself, but also symbolically in respect of the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights Defenders. The Coalition for the ICC will continue to help safeguard the Court's mandate and promise of justice for victims as we remain ready to engage with you in our shared goal of a fair, effective, and independent ICC. Thank you.
I thank you for your statement. And now allow me to take this opportunity to thank those state parties who, despite difficult economic and financial circumstances, have been able to make their contributions to the budget of the Court. I also wish to thank those state parties who have been able to make advance payments of their contributions for 2023, as this has allowed the Court to avoid a real liquidity crisis in the last month of the year. I also wish to thank those state parties who have made contributions to the various trust funds of the Court. These contributions are highly appreciated. Distinguished delegates, as mentioned by several of you during this week, the term of office of our registrar, the registrar of the Court, Mr. Peter Lewis, will end in April 2023. And this is therefore his last assembly session as registrar. I wish to take this opportunity to express on behalf of the Assembly our sincere gratitude to him for his strong leadership and substantial contribution to the work of the Rome Statute system over the years. You all recognize, and many of you have said it during this Assembly, that he has been an extraordinary registrar for the Court. But maybe some of you do not know that in addition, he was also a key contributor to the international drafting of the legal framework of the Court in the preparatory commission after the Rome Diplomatic Conference 2 decades ago, where I was privileged to be his colleague. Some of the procedural provisions regularly used in the courtroom today were achieved thanks to his great efforts, which combined experience as a practitioner with superb diplomatic skills. His time as registrar has been one of unprecedented challenges for the Court, including the threats and attacks against the Court and its officials, which created an ominous situation for the Court and the entire Rome Statute system. Throughout this time, despite the extremely challenging environment, the registrar has led the registry with integrity, efficiency, and good humor, always clearly, calmly, and concisely explaining sensitive matters to state parties and other stakeholders, while quietly and effectively resolving complications with a very low public profile. He has been steadfast in his unwavering commitment to support the cause of international criminal justice in general and that of the ICC in particular. Peter Lewis has trod an arduous and indelible path as an exemplary elected official of the Court, which others hope to emulate. On behalf of this Assembly, I thank him wholeheartedly and warmly and wish him all the very best for his future endeavors after a well-deserved period of rest. He will be truly missed by all of us. Mucha suerte, querido Peter. After such a great performance, I believe a big applause is in order. And this really brings us to the end of the work of the 21st session of the Assembly. I would like to particularly acknowledge the work conducted during 2022 in the working groups in New York and The Hague, and by the facilitators and the ad-country focal points as they carried out the mandates of the Assembly under the leadership of their respective coordinators, Vice President Bob Ray, Canada, and Vice President Ambassador Katerina Sekwensova from the Czech Republic. I would like to thank delegations for their commitment and flexibility demonstrating during the last few days. This constructive approach has allowed the Assembly to successfully resolve a range of issues. I trust that we will be able to carry forward the mandates contained in the resolutions which we have adopted today. I wish to sincerely thank all state parties, members of civil society, observer states, and of course, the court for their support and cooperation, without which we would not have been able to successfully conclude our work. We have had a productive session and have made many important decisions regarding the court and the Assembly. I encourage state parties to give their support to the court as we move forward, as we look to continue the process of the review of the court. I now declare the 21st session of the Assembly of State Parties to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court closed, and I wish you all happy holiday season and safe travels to those returning to the New York or their capitals. Before you go, I would like to invite Mrs. Lewis, who is sitting at the first row here, to join us at the podium for a photograph.